Matt Makens here. In today's Weather Watch, we're talking about the wet season, off to a roaring start in May, historically so in some cases, and June following suit. What's the outlook moisture-wise for the summer in today's Weather Watch? Off to a roaring start in some cases, especially some of the drought areas, most prolific across the Central Plains. If you look at the past year, since last growing season through the start of this one, any dry areas are in the brown shades, and historically dry from eastern Nebraska, western Kansas, all the way through the panhandle of Texas into central and southern Texas. In some cases, over the past year, we are more than a foot behind average, but we've been tackling that with the kickoff of this wet season. So what is the wet season? Well, it does kick off in May, but I'm just going to do an analysis from June through August, so the summer months. What is that percentage of water for the year that we pick up just in the summer? And that's what I'm showing you here. Now, the wet season may start a little earlier, like in May, like we saw already, and it may linger with the monsoon in other cases throughout September and perhaps into early October, depending on where you are. But for the subject of just this visual, this is just looking at summer. In a lot of cases, it's really impressive how much water we actually receive just in the summer alone. From Mexico all the way up kind of the east side of the Rockies into the northern plains in Canada. In many cases, we're talking about is about half of what we get for the year. In some cases in Mexico, as you go later in the wet season, you get into the monsoon, more than 70% of that water every year falls kind of in this classic wet season. So it's a critical time of year to make up for those deficits, those foot deficits in some cases, and to see some progress being made. And we have seen some progress. This is just May. That's when things kind of got kicked off here. And we had quite a bit of wet weather for eastern parts of Wyoming, western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, down through the panhandle of Texas. And in a lot of cases, May alone was able to beat down some of the drought here. Remember, we were still in severe to exceptional drought in many of these same areas. Let's take a moment and talk about that. Let's talk about the drought. You're looking at two images. The one on the left is when this video is published, so middle June. The image on the right is the drought snapshot from very late in April and early May. The differences stand out. You can see differences around Florida. The differences in the bullseye of the exceptional drought conditions across the central U.S. Other differences. Notice the drought growth in the image on the left around the Great Lakes, the Three I-States, Ohio Valley, New England. We're seeing drought grow in many areas because it's been dry there. But kicking off the wet season has been very favorable off to the west for parts of the Great Basin around Colorado. Now the problem is Nebraska. Eastern Nebraska has seen very little improvement. In fact, it's actually seen drought grow in that exceptional category. In some cases, there's a couple of counties not far outside of Omaha that have had their driest period of record since the Dust Bowl. So we still have drought to overcome, but that moisture just to the west of that area, off around Wyoming, western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, has been tremendous. In some cases for Colorado, there are locations that just from May into early June have already picked up what they would in a year. So their year, even if we shut the rain off now, the year is going to be wetter than average. Let's turn to June. This is precipitation through the airing of this video, and we have a lot of moisture out to the west, stretching down into Texas. And that's something pretty classic that you'll see in developing El Nino years. El Nino is grabbing attention here. It's grabbing a foothold on our atmosphere. And with that being said, with El Nino kicking in and grabbing a hold of our summer, what have summers been like moisture-wise since 1990? And that's what I'm showing you here. So I grabbed El Nino summers since 1990, plotted the precip as a percentage of average. And what do you have? A wet Texas, wet parts of the Great Basin, wet parts of the Pacific Northwest. Very dry signal around eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, into Iowa and Missouri. That's history. Look what's happened so far this summer as you look at that June image. Isn't that similarity pretty striking? Now, I'm not saying that all El Nino years are alike, but as you analyze El Nino years with similar other factors like what the MJO has been doing, PDO, AMO, the Arctic Oscillation, some of this weird polar vortex stuff that's been happening throughout May into early June. You factor those things together, what's the summer outlook looking like? And that's why the outlook keeps moisture right in those similar areas for June through August. Still, we have to worry about the drought over eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, and we'll have further details on those extremes in your next Weather Watch. Some of those extreme conditions will be not just precipitation or temperatures, but areas of drought and wildfires. That last video I did talks about the wildfire forecast for the summer.